about me, and then we can move on to, I think we can do a quick intro of all of you and then get right into the presentation. Jason Miller, I've been working at OSPI in the same area for 7 years, and I work primarily with the federal programs, several federal programs, including Title I Part A and 21st Century and rural education, and some state programs such as the Learning Assistance Program and Highly Capable. And a few years ago, I was asked to, I was one of the leaders in developing a document that helps to provide support for this topic here. So we'll spend part of the time talking, going over that document. I do want to, and I think that's good for me. Maybe we can go do a quick intro, your name and where you're from, and then we'll jump right into to this session here. Maybe we start with Gina.
Hi, I'm Gina Bullis, and I'm the Executive Financial Officer for Central Valley School District. I've only been here since June, and prior to that, did consulting for 7 years in school districts, and then prior to that, Othello School District for 21 years in finance. So looking forward to learning about this.
Great. Thank you. How about Christy?
Hi, I'm Christy Hoffines, and I'm the Assistant Superintendent at ESD 123. And Jason may probably doesn't remember, but Jason, prior to being at the ESD, I was an Executive Director in Moses Lake. And Jason helped me, as well as our Federal Programs Director, learn a lot about braiding funds. And I know people are curious about how to keep this work going, and being able to figure out how they can braid their funds to do so. So thanks for being here. I'll pass it on to Claire.
Hi, everybody. I'm Claire Olson. I'm the Executive Director of Business here at 9 Mile Falls School District. I've been here since February of 2021. Before that, I was spent a short time at another district, a small district, and then before that, I was 26 years in healthcare. So. And I will pass it to Aisha.
Hi, this is Aisha Horton. I'm the business manager at West Valley. I've been there for about 2 years. Prior to that, I was an accountant at Spokane Public Schools for 5 years. And that's about it. I'll pass it on. Let's see, who hasn't gone? Todd? Is Todd gone?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm on my phone, so I'm not where I should be right now, but Superintendent, Columbia School District in Burbank. Excited about the work. I've actually done some of the work for a little while, and then we've got our association to move forward with a balanced calendar next year. I'm spending this year trying to convince my community that this is the right thing to do in our board. So done some of the work behind it. A little disappointed that some of that funding went away, which was critical to our work. Now I'm trying to figure out how I can afford to do the awesome and amazing things I want to do in addition to the summer learning loss, which I'm trying to figure those pieces out. So that's why I'm interested in this session.
Thanks, Todd. I think Krista is the last one on the list.
Yes, I'm Krista Greider. I'm a teacher at Winlock High School, and I'm not sure if I'm in the right room or not. Yeah, so I'm not really sure what you're doing.
This is the braided funds, and I'll share my screen right now. I'll do this one right here. So we are going to talk about braiding and blending funds, federal and state. So Krista, you're welcome to stay if this is the right one.
Okay. Yeah, I'll go ahead and stay.
Great. So really glad that you're all here. I'm glad that I can be here and hopefully provide information or help you with what you need. So I will move through this, and I do want to point out our vision. You can see my screen okay, right? Okay,
yes.
vision, mission, values, and our equity statement, all important for us to think about the students, really. It's what we're trying to focus on, the students and the students' needs. And I think this balanced calendar effort is really a step forward in that. As we start off, every district, every LEA that has these funds has a variety of different funds, a variety of different challenges, and at different places. So there's not a one size fits all, and there's not even real. There's not a lot of everybody can do this instructions or guidance. We do have some general principles, and we have some examples of what will work and what you can do. So we'll try to share those throughout. But I wanted to start off to see, where are all of you? See, Todd is starting up next year. But where are the rest of you in this process? And what are some of those challenges that you're dealing with?
So at Central Valley, our superintendent, John Parker, or Dr. Parker, has already been through some kind of training on this. And we actually had submitted also for that first year grant. But when it didn't come through, I assured him we could figure out whatever we needed, at least for this year, for planning. So we're in those really early stages of planning. And our associate soup is in one of the other sessions, because I saw him on here. So we're here garnering information to share.
Okay. Thank you, Gina.
And we're in the same boat as Gina is here at West Valley. We're in the very early stages, just trying to figure out how to portray this to the community, kind of learn more about it. So West Valley's also in the very early stages.
Okay, thank you.
Same with 9 Mile, just getting started.
And I'm at an ESD, so I'm really just here to be able to figure out how to support districts who want to continue this work and, help them get creative with possibilities for funding the work.
Okay, great. Well, at the beginning stages, these are some, I have decision points. I don't know if that's the right term for it, but these are some big ideas, some things to consider as you're preparing for this, and it ties directly back to how the money can be used in flexible ways. So, for example, the first one, a needs assessment. Most, if not all, federal program funding sources require or encourage, at least, that you do a needs assessment first. For many of those programs, your needs assessment can dictate how your funds are spent. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But one example is Title I Part A. If your district plan and especially your building level plans, if those indicate specific activities, maybe intercession activities that are part of your plan, part of your needs assessment, that can be funded out of your Title I funds. But also consider some funding source when you're thinking about your resources. Think about, does this activity, is it at the district level, at the LEA level, or is it at the school level? And does it have to be at that level? So sometimes you can reassign activities to the school, and sometimes you can do the reverse. So different funding sources can be used depending on if it's at the school level or LEA level. And then requirements, sometimes there's always specific requirements about those, including reporting requirements. But I hope to share with you some ways that there are flexible options for using those funds. And then the last thing, we'll touch on this briefly at the very end. We want to think about time and effort, and want to think about the staff's staff assignment, what funding sources are included there. So we'll touch on that briefly there too. But I did want to make sure that we're all on the same page. When we're talking about braiding funds, we are really talking about coordinating. How can we use those funds together? Blending funds adds a lot more flexibility, can be a lot more flexibility. If it's at the school level, you can combine funds into one pot of money in the school-wide. You can transfer some funds into other funds so they increase your amount. And then there's the REAP eligible districts. Columbia, maybe Todd, I don't know if you're REAP eligible, maybe 9 miles. Are you REAP eligible?
I don't believe so. I'll look into it. But yeah, I'm interested in any funds that I could possibly use. I didn't jump into the specifics of it, but I mean, you know, with that funding going away, there's obviously things we'd love to do with some of these intercessions and things like that to take advantage of that. And so all these things cost money in terms of salary and time and things like that. So yeah, any information on that, I'd love to hear more about that.
Great. So we'll jump right in to a little more details about where these flexibilities are. When I did want to point out to help frame the braiding piece, think about your braiding rope, and the different strands of rope still are the same strands there, and they're all mixed together to make one braid. Or the image I have here as a rock band. You have different instruments, they have different sheet music, but they're all playing the same song. Blending is different. You're putting everything into the blender and mixing it up, and it becomes one. So one pot of money in this case here. So the examples of blending, the biggest and the most flexible piece here is the consolidating funds in a school-wide. When you combine, and you can combine most federal funds from that the Department of Ed oversees, so funds that come from the Department of Ed to OSPI and then to you. You can combine those into a school-wide plan. Once they're consolidated into that school-wide plan, you can use those funds for any activity that supports your needs assessment and your plan. So for example here, if you are if you're combining your Title II funds, you can use those Title II funds for resources for your students. Title II funds are usually for professional development, but in a school-wide, you can use those dollars for those other activities that support the plan there. The next type of blending, a little bit different, but you can transfer the funds. So Title II and Title IV can be transferred into each other or other programs. Title I Part A is most common, or transferring Title II into Title IV or vice versa. Those are the most common ways of transferring funds. Once you do that, those Title II funds, for example, become Title I funds. So they follow all the Title I rules and requirements for those. The next type of blending is the REAP. And REAP, this doesn't move the funds to different sources, but it allows you to use the funds as if they were different sources. And so combining or braiding funds is mostly about what this document here, this resource is that I encourage you to go take a look at. We are updating it now, and ideally it will be updated and posted next month. This document has sections to help give ideas, give actual examples of types of braiding of funds. It gives you scenarios and different ways you could fund them, including There's some tables. We'll go show those in just a minute here, but there's also other information in here for background information or additional information about requirements for the different funding sources, and some contacts and resources to help you in those decisions. And here's just a list of the activities or the initiatives that are designed here, but or that are outlined here. I would say if you are looking to fund one of these different initiatives, one of these different topics, go in there and look at that. Otherwise, I would say you could do a search for different activities. There may be family engagement activities in multiple different ones, for example, or there are intervention type activities listed in multiple different ones. So here's just a couple examples of what that looks like. What Title I can pay for. Here we have the LAP funds for, and here we have different charts that you can go to see which funding sources could pay for this, hiring a school-based instructor or behavioral coach. So that's in the document there. But before we go into some of those other items there, I want to talk about if you're thinking about what, back up a little bit, what types of activities or what things need to be funded are you looking for funding sources of funding for? So I'll leave that open for just a minute. So for example, are we looking for additional funding just for that intercession period? Are we looking for funding for all of the work that you're doing this year with communicating with the community and those additional meetings, the research studies, those kinds of things?
Honestly, I'm not really sure what we're gonna need funding for. I know this year definitely will be the intermediary with a lot of the studies, groups and things like that. But yeah, I don't even know what this is gonna look like when it's implemented or even what the costs are gonna be. So I'm not sure.
Thank you, Alicia. Any other ideas? I think you're all about the same place here.
Hey, Todd, you're sorry.
I was just going to mention previously, you know, that to do the intercessions, to add more time, you know, you're obviously going to need more in salary, benefits, possibly materials, supplies. I've heard the state's going to take care of food, so that wouldn't necessarily be an issue, but that we'd also incur additional transportation costs. So all these are things that we've thought about in terms of if we're truly going to, you know, unlock the power of a balanced calendar. And you know, the summer slide is the first and foremost, but beyond that, if you're going to add to that, it would be just all those additional costs in terms of manpower and getting kids to and from those sessions.
Todd, do you want to speak a little bit about what you spent your money on, or what was what had the biggest cost when you first started investigating this?
Well, things we did in the past were just, you know, we did a book study. We did some things in the past just to try and get people knowledgeable about what it is and what it's not. You know, part of the big thing of this for us was it was as much about telling people what it's not about as much as what it is, because people associate a balance calendar, at least with us early on, to year-round school, and we had to convince and tell people that the idea of a balanced calendar is not a year-round school. It's really just taking the 180 days and moving them around to where it looks differently, getting away from that traditional calendar and that 3-month summer. So we spent a lot of time educating our staff, bringing people together for meetings, things after school. We have not done the community piece. So when I say we'd like to do this next year, it's still up in the air because we have to convince our community this is still the right thing to do. So I've begun working with David and beginning to try and set up community sessions when they're he did a balanced calendar 101 for our staff this last Friday. And so, you know, we've gone beyond just taking a vote at the union level to working with the rest of everyone. We had a waiver day where we had classified staff, custodians, cooks, you name it. They're the front line of your people, educate them on what it is and what it's not, and then trying to spin that to your community and do that. So that's kind of what we're spending the rest of our time this year doing, is trying to work through that.
Thank you, Todd. That was helpful. Thank you, Christy. Alicia, anything else? Okay, so the first thing that I say, if we go back up to the needs assessment, what's your any of that research that you're doing, any of that gathering information, meeting with the community to get their input, you can consider all that part of your needs assessment, part of your resource and needs assessment. If you include that in your plans for developing a district plan for ESEA, for Title I Part A, for example, Title I Part A specifically, also for Title IV Part A, those require needs assessments and bringing in the community. So you can do all of that, include and that those funds could go to pay for some of those things. It's also if you are a Title I, if you do some of this in your Title I schools, or include some of this work in your Title I your district meetings, if you have the district Title I meetings, you can include funding from Title I for that also. All of this to help, and the purpose of that is bringing the community in together, bringing all of your resources together to find out what is really needed and how you can best support your students. And that can include your balanced calendar discussions with your parents and community. And that can go throughout the whole year. Your family engagement activities. You're talking about their rights, the parents' rights, the requirements, the plans for services. All of that can be included, can be funded out of the Title I funds and the family engagement funds if they're focused on those families and those Title I schools. I will also say that the intercession piece, that intercession is all supplemental. So ESEA funds are all devoted to supplemental supports. So anything you're doing in your intercession period, your intercession times, those you can write the plans into your school-wide state plan or district plan and your school-wide building plans. And then you can use those Title I school-wide or your Title I district plan to fund those activities there. That can include paying for the staff time in those intercession periods. And it kind of would work the same way that you would fund summer school if you had a Title I summer school, where you could pay for the staff and any other activity or any other expenses that are required to ensure that the interventions that the time period at that intercession time is happening. So that's pretty flexible for that intercession period there. If you have school-wide buildings, Title I school-wide buildings, you can serve all of your students. If you're targeted assistance buildings, then you're just serving those identified students, which likely would be ones you want to serve in those intercession times anyway. As you are developing your plans, I would say you definitely want to use that data as you're looking at your needs assessments and resource assessments. Use data, include that in your plans, and those plans for your district level plans, you can include that in your application, your Title I application pieces in the consolidated grant application, or you can include that in a separate document as your state plan there. For the building plans, we don't collect the building plans for Title I Part A, but you can you keep those on at the building level and or at the district level, and then include. You want to tie your activities to those needs that have been identified in your needs assessment, and then you have that that's an allowable activity. When you are if I go forward here, I think I covered most of those things here, but I wanted to touch on something here with the school-wide. 9 Mile, Claire and Alicia and Todd, are your buildings school-wide buildings? And Gina, you Title I?
We are.
Yeah,
have
we're all
very-
school wide.
We have very little Title I here.
Okay. So one great flexibility about Title I Part A is even if you only get a little Title I fund, just a small amount of Title I funds, you if your poverty percent is high enough and you're automatically eligible to have a school-wide. Even if you have just $5,000, not enough money to do very much, but you can combine funds from other sources to build up the school-wide funding, and then you can use those combined funds for your activities that are outlined in your school-wide plan. And what we encourage all the business managers to do is keep a separate a subcode for any funding source that's combined in the school-wide plan. That way, when the auditors or when you have when OSPI comes to do the monitoring, you can see the subcode on those activities that'll tie back to the school-wide plan. And then, so if you're combining Title IV, for example, in your school-wide plan, or Title II, you can use those activities for interventions, for example, and then you just have to ensure the intent and purpose of those funds are being met in other ways. So for Title II, are you doing PD? It doesn't matter what funding source it is, but do you have professional development going on that supports that intent and purpose of Title II? And for Title IV, do you have enrichment activities? Do you have those technology supports? Doesn't matter what funding, how they're funded. If you have those going, then you can use those Title IV funds to support what's in your consolidated school-wide plan. I do want to get on to some things to consider when you're combining funds or braiding funds. I'm going to move forward here to the items to consider. So the first thing is time and effort. When you are operating the school-wide, then all of the staff that participate in that school-wide would do the time and effort. But if they're only funded out of sources that are combined in the school-wide, they just need to do semi-annual. It's a single cost objective. If they're funded partially out of title school-wide funds and partially out of other funds, then they would need to do the monthly. And LAP funds are considered a single cost objective to Title I. So if you combine Title I funds or you don't combine LAP funds in your school-wide, then you can still do semi-annual if they're paid out of LAP and Title. Questions on that? So this is something to consider if you are funding them partially out of federal funds and partially out of other funds, partially out of school-wide or other funds, that may add that requirement to do time and effort there. And then the other piece, important piece to keep in mind is the supplement not supplant requirement. And Title I Part A, our supplement not supplant changed with ESSA. So really what you need to consider is not necessarily what activities are funded, what were funded last year or next year, what is for the Title I requirement. You just need to consider how much money is going to that school. If you only have one school or one grade span per school, then this requirement is not applicable to you.
Jason, I have a quick question. On some of your slides, you're referencing a page number. What resource document is that?
That's for that unlocking document. Sorry, I should have mentioned.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I thought I might have missed it, so thanks.
You're welcome. Yeah, so supplement, not supplant for Title I Part A is pretty, or likely for all of you, it's going to be difficult for you to not meet that requirement, especially if you only have one school or one school per grade span. The idea for Title I Part A is that you're not taking Title I funds, or you're not taking state and local funds away from a school because it has Title I funds. So if you're not doing that, then you're probably okay. For the other funding sources, they are more similar to what it was in the past, where you had to ensure that you're following those specific requirements there, as Title I used to do. And Christy, do you know what time we are ending here?
There's about 6 minutes, a little over 6 minutes left in our session.
Okay. I think this is the last slide I have. But I'm sure I haven't answered all the questions, and hopefully I've given some ideas on how to solve some of your funding issues. But I highly encourage you to go and look at that unlocking document. I'm going to, just to make it easier for all of you, put a link to that in the chat. Thank you, Christy. Any questions before specific things you're thinking about? Todd mentioned book studies. You can use your title funds, or you probably can use a couple different funding sources for those book studies. Go ahead, Christy.
How would a district find out if they're a REAP district?
We have a list of the REAP districts. Let me go look at the page here for REAP. I'll put that in the link. Check here. This is the REAP page. And there is a link if you open this, the Alternative Fund Use Authority REAP button. There's a link to those REAP eligible districts. I will copy that also. And there's the link to that. Oops. There you go. And yeah, if you do have specific questions about REAP, Tony May's address, contact information is right there on that page too. I have on the last slide here my contact information. Happy to help out if you have specific questions along the way. I think one key thing that is going to hopefully make it easier. I mean, you don't get additional funding for from federal programs for these activities, but you can use most of your ESEA funds, and some of your LAP funds could go to supporting activities during these intersession periods. I didn't talk much about LAP, but LAP funds could be used to support those math and ELA supplemental activities during your intersession periods, and for the staff that provide those.
What about transportation with LAP, Jason?
Oh, thank you. So transportation, it may be possible with LAP. With the federal funds, it's usually not allowable except for homeless and foster students. But I would say for LAP, I know we're almost out of time.
I think we used LAP dollars to pay for transportation for summer school. So I'm wondering if intersessions would also qualify.
Yeah. I think that is probably okay, but I would want to double check that. Annie Pinnell would be the lead and the person to reach out to about transportation from with LAP funds. Not during the school day, but intersession periods, that might be okay.
About 1.5 minutes to wrap up. Any final questions? Thank you so much, Jason, for your time today.
You're welcome.
And I know you are a great resource for people to reach out to. You've always been very willing to answer my questions. So I hope people will feel free to reach out to you.
Thank you. I'm happy to help. Appreciate that.
All right. I'm going to
All right,
stop
thank
recording.
you.